Shout out to Adrian Thomas for sending me this particular story. And when I saw just the title alone, I said I have to speak on this because this is absolutely ridiculous. But it's it's not surprising, but because the number is so high, it really took me aback. So I'm reading it. I got this article from reason.com, and it says US prisoners have lost a combined 20,000 years of life to false convictions. How much you want to bet most of those were black men? Hence the reason why I'm using this stock image of a black man behind bars. 20,000 years combined, and that's for the entire US population out of every state in America, the US. That is unheard of. You know, it's so funny because America, the US in particular, makes up a very small population if you look at it on a global scale. But stats have proven that the incarceration rate is extremely high in the US compared to other nations that are larger than it as far as people go. Most of those, I'm sure, are black men, and these are not from black men that are in jail for crimes that are worthy or deemed jail worthy, but people who are in jail for low-level petty crimes that should be classified as misdemeanors. Let me go ahead and read this article so we can figure out the exact numbers and dates and put everything together. In 2018 alone, wrongly convicted prisoners lost more than 1,600 years of life behind bars. That was just from 1 year. Let me say that again. In 2018 alone, wrongly convicted prisoners lost more than 1,600 years of life behind bars. That means that all the prisoners that they put into prison who were in there for wrongful convictions got a combined total of 1,600 years that they should not have received. How much you want to bet the ones that should have been behind bars didn't go behind bars, and if they did, they got a very low sentence? That's a new record according to the annual report from the National Registry of Exoneration, which tracks all exonerations from 1989, which was the year I was born, onward. So we're talking almost 30, we're talking 30 years. In 2018, 151 people were freed from serving sentences for crimes they did not commit. They had served 1,639 years altogether, an average of about 11 years per person. Another record set last year is also worth our attention. More of these exonerations are happening in cases where misconduct by officials played a role. That right there does not surprise me. The report documents official misconduct in at least 107 exonerations last year. Official misconduct played a role in 80% of the 54 homicide cases in 2018 in which the person convicted was subsequently exonerated. So basically putting a murder onto somebody that didn't murder anybody. One of the big drivers of misconduct fueled exonerations in 2018 was good old corrupt Chicago, of course. In 2017, Chicago saw its first ever mass exoneration due to a corruption scandal involving Sergeant Ronald Watts. Watts was charged with leading his unit of officers in a massive protection racket where officers planted drugs on people who refused to pay extortion demands. In 2017, the convictions of 15 men were tossed out by prosecutors. Further investigation into the extent of Watts' actions and those of his officers led to more exonerations in 2018. Another 31 defendants had their charges tossed out last year, and the report notes that even more exonerations came this year, another 14 of them. The Watts cases have prompted the National Registry of Exonerations to rethink how it handles group exonerations. Historically, this report has not included group exonerations in its statistics, because its definition calls for individualized re-examination of specific cases. After taking a closer look at the Watts cases, they realized that even though they are group exonerations, the defendants are also seeing individualized re-investigations. So they're going to start adding these exonerations to their statistics if they qualify. Because of Chicago's police corruption, and I put most of that blame onto that former mayor, Rahm Emanuel, Illinois topped the list of states for exonerations last year with 49. New York and Texas tied for second with 16. Look at that gap. Chicago had the highest level of exonerations last year with 49 exonerations. Texas and New York tied for second with 16. Look at that huge gap. That's more than double the amount. Now y'all see why the Chicago PD should be called corrupt PD. Just replace Chicago with corrupt. A few additional details from the latest report include, in 70 exonerations in 2018, the underlying crime never even happened. The Watts cases obviously fell into this category, but also worth noticing is that Vicente Benavidez was freed from death row last April. He had been convicted 25 years ago for the rape, sodomy, and murder of a 21-month-old girl. The conviction was vacated after experts determined that the sexual assault did not happen and the injuries that killed the girl may have been a result of getting hit by a car. In 19 exonerations, the defendant falsely confessed to the crime. All but 2 of these were murder confessions. 7 of these cases were in Cook County, Illinois, home of Chicago, but didn't involve Watts. Instead, it was a completely different corrupt cop, Detective Reynaldo Guevara, whose misconduct in wringing false confessions out of defendants has led to 14 exonerations so far. I think it's safe to say that the cops there are the reason why, if your tax-paying money goes up, it's pretty much on them. Not only did 2018 set a record for the amount of time served by those who were exonerated, it saw another milestone. The number of years served by incarcerated people who were subsequently exonerated surpassed 20,000. That works out to an average of about 9 years served in jail for each person who has been exonerated. Fewer than half of people who have been exonerated received any sort of compensation from the state for the years of their life that they've lost. States and local governments have provided compensation that have paid out more than $2.2 billion, that's billion with a B, to exonerated prisoners. The report is quick to remind us that this does not include the cost to taxpayers of having prosecuted and incarcerated these people in the first place. 2 of the longest serving defendants in the history of the registry were exonerated in 2018. Richard Phillips served 45 years in Michigan for a murder conviction from 1972. Wilbur Jones served 44 years from a sexual assault conviction in Louisiana. Both were convicted due to sketchy testimony. That was a pretty loaded article. Again, thank you, Adrian, for sending me this. That is, like I said, it's unreal. I mean, we hear about this stuff all the time, but when you actually see the facts and the figures and the numbers in front of you like that, it blows your mind. Like, my mind is blown right now just reading that. 20,000. 20,000 over the course of 30 years from 1989. Now, the last 2 I read were from way before 1989, from 1972 and 1973. So it makes you wonder how, if you go even further back, how many more? It's probably more. It's definitely way more than 20,000. It's probably more than double that. And and notice one thing this article did not do. It did not break down the racial makeup of these exonerations. That's because most of the exonerations were for black people. Point blank, period. And see, they don't want to put that out there because, see, they want to give the satisfaction of palm color being right because they like to say that we do all the crime and that's why we're in jail. No, motherfuckers, that's not it. A lot of times, black people are put in jail for low-level crimes that should only warrant maybe at least probation. You got black men in jail right now for some damn weed. Yet you got people like Brock Turner only served 3 months in jail and he's out. All he gets is a slap on the wrist and registered as a sex offender. I just got done reading hearing a story by Seiji Hito, and shout out to him, about this white guy who literally had child pornography, 11 counts, which means that's a 1 count per piece of child porn on his computer that they found, and they let him go. I don't even think he even had to register as a sex offender. So y'all literally allowed a man who most likely engages in sexual lewd acts with children back onto the street. And the bad thing about it is some of the people who lived in the neighborhood where this guy lived at did not even know this guy was in jail for the crime he committed, nor did they know he was out. So they literally kept everyone in the dark about it. Now I see why a lot of people are scared to go onto those online registries and see who in the neighborhood is registered, because you can do that and find out who's a registered sex offender within proximity of where you live. But some people are scared to do that because they don't know, they would rather not know. But you got people like him that can get back on the street, but they got someone like who looks like me in jail for maybe petty theft, like maybe stealing a candy bar. Or they're constantly hemming up our kids. I just saw a video where they just arrested this 10-year-old boy for absolutely nothing. I saw another video where this black girl got tased and dragged down a flight of stairs. They don't do that to them white kids. At that point, they say, you better not dare do that or that's your job. Look at what happened with those 2 black cops in Louisiana who accidentally shot and killed Jeremy Martis because their dad wanted to be a goddamn road rage maniac. But yeah, like I said, none of this stuff surprised me, but the numbers that I just read definitely blew my mind. But y'all let me know what y'all think about what I just read in this article. Does any of this surprise you? I mean, not in the sense that what I read or the fact that they have these exonerations, but do the numbers surprise you? Like that 20,000? And I'll talk to y'all in the next one.